The coffee pot burned my palm, but I barely felt it anymore. Pain had become background noise over the last 3 years, just another thing you learned to ignore when survival was the only goal that mattered. My name is Rachel Dawson, and if you had told me 6 months ago that I would end up kneeling on a greasy diner floor begging a complete stranger to save my life, I would have laughed. Actually, no. I probably would have cried. That is what I did most back then. But let me tell you something about rock bottom. It is not a destination. It is a trapdoor that keeps opening beneath you just when you think you have finally hit solid ground. Tonight, that trapdoor swung wide open again. Have you ever had one of those moments where your entire body knows something is wrong before your brain catches up? Where every instinct screams at you to run, but your feet might as well be cemented to the floor. That is what happened when I saw Derek walk through the door of Rosie's family restaurant at exactly 8:37 on a Thursday night. My ex-husband. The man who had spent 5 years teaching me that love was just another word for control. The man who was supposed to be locked up for another 18 months. But there he was, wearing that same faded leather jacket, that same cold smile that never reached his eyes, walking toward my section like he owned the place.
Like he owned me.
The dinner rush had finally died down. Most of the booths were empty except for a few regulars nursing their after-dinner coffee and a lone man at the counter who had been sitting there for the past hour, barely touching his food. I had noticed him earlier because he was different from our usual crowd. Everything about him was expensive and controlled, from the way he held his fork to the perfect fit of his black shirt. He looked like he had wandered in from a different world entirely. I remember thinking he seemed dangerous in a way I could not quite place. Not Derek's kind of dangerous, which was loud and unpredictable and fueled by cheap whiskey and a need to hurt. This man's danger was quiet, calculated. The kind that made you want to step carefully even though he had not said a word to threaten you.
None of that mattered now.
Derek was here, and my 6-year-old son was in the back office doing his homework, completely unaware that the monster from his nightmares had just walked back into our lives. My manager, Tony, was in the kitchen. The cook had already left for the night. It was just me and Lisa, the other waitress, and she was dealing with a customer complaint at table 9. I was alone on the floor. Completely alone. Derek chose a booth in my section. Of course he did. This was not a coincidence. This was planned. He had been released early somehow, and instead of staying away like the restraining order demanded, he had come straight here. To my workplace. To the one place where I thought I might be safe because it was public and there were witnesses and surely no one would try anything in front of other people. I had been so stupid. He settled into the booth, spreading his arms across the back of the seat like he was claiming territory. His eyes found mine across the room, and the look in them made my blood turn to ice water. It was the same look he used to give me right before things got bad. Right before I would spend the next 3 days covering bruises with makeup and lying to everyone about how clumsy I was. I could not move. My feet were rooted to the spot next to the coffee station, the pot still burning my palm, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack through my ribs. He smiled. That terrible, knowing smile. Then he raised 2 fingers and gestured for me to come over. Every cell in my body screamed no. But what choice did I have? If I refused, if I made a scene, if I called the police, what would happen? He would get arrested again, sure. But then what? He would be out in a few hours, maybe a few days, and he would be even angrier. And next time, I might not see him coming. Next time, he might not just threaten. I forced my legs to move. 1 step. Then another. The distance between the coffee station and his booth felt like miles. The other customers kept eating, kept talking, completely unaware that my entire world was collapsing in slow motion. When I reached his table, I could smell the alcohol on him before I even got close. Whiskey. His favorite. The same smell that used to fill our apartment every night before he would start looking for reasons to be angry. "Hey, Rachel," he said, his voice casual, like we were old friends catching up. Like he had not put me in the hospital twice. Like our son did not wake up screaming from nightmares about him 3 times a week. You gonna take my order or what? My hand shook as I pulled out my notepad. You should not be here, Derek. There is a restraining order. Restraining order got dropped. He leaned back, that smile widening. Good behavior. Can you believe that? Me, behaving myself. That was impossible. The restraining order was good for another year. Unless he had somehow convinced a judge, or unless there had been some kind of clerical error, or unless he was lying just to scare me. All of those options were equally terrifying. What do you want? My voice came out smaller than I intended. What do I want? He tilted his head, pretending to think about it. Well, for starters, I want to see my son. That is reasonable, right? A father wanting to see his boy. My blood turned colder.
No.
Absolutely not. See, that is where you are wrong, Rachel. I got rights. The court said so. And I've been thinking maybe it is time Ethan came to live with me for a while. You know, get to know his old man properly. The notepad slipped from my fingers and clattered on the floor.
Ethan.
He wanted to take Ethan. Over my dead body, I whispered. Derek's expression changed. The fake friendliness melted away, and underneath was the man I remembered. The one who had once held my head underwater in the bathtub until I stopped fighting. The one who had broken my wrist for burning dinner. That can be arranged, he said quietly. The restaurant sounds faded into white noise. I could not hear the other customers anymore, could not hear the clatter of dishes or the hum of the overhead lights. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and Derek's words echoing in my head. He was going to take Ethan. Tonight. He was going to walk into that back office, grab my baby, and I would never see him again. Or worse, he would hurt him. Use him. Break him the same way he had broken me. I had to do something. I had to stop this. But how? I was 5'3" and 110 pounds. Derek was 6'1" and had arms thick from prison workouts. If I tried to fight him, I would lose. If I called the cops, they might not get here in time. If I screamed, he would just drag me and Ethan out before anyone could react. I was trapped. Again. Just like always. My eyes swept the restaurant desperately, looking for help, for anyone who might intervene. Lisa was still at table 9. Tony was still in the kitchen. The regular customers were old, harmless, not the type to get involved in a domestic situation. But then my gaze landed on the man at the counter. He was watching. Not obviously, not in a way that would draw attention, but I could feel his eyes on the situation.
On me.
He had stopped pretending to eat, and now he sat perfectly still, his posture relaxed, but his attention razor-sharp. Something in his expression made my feet move before my brain could catch up. I did not think. I just acted. I walked away from Derek's booth, my legs shaking so badly I almost fell, and I went straight to the counter. Straight to the stranger who had been sitting there all night. When I reached him, something inside me just broke. All the fear, all the desperation, all the years of holding myself together by sheer willpower just shattered. I dropped to my knees beside his stool. The entire restaurant went silent. Please, I heard myself say, my voice cracking on the word. Please save me from my ex-husband. Please. I did not know what else to do. For a moment, nothing happened. The world seemed to freeze. I was on my knees on the dirty diner floor, begging a complete stranger for help like some kind of desperate animal. Part of me wanted to take it back, to stand up and pretend this had never happened, to preserve whatever shred of dignity I had left. But then the stranger moved. He turned his head slowly, and for the first time, I got a real look at him. He was younger than I had thought, maybe mid-30s, with light tan skin and dark hair that fell naturally back from his face. His features were sharp, almost elegant, but there was something hard in them too. Something that suggested violence was not foreign to him. His eyes were the darkest brown I had ever seen, and when they met mine, I felt like I was looking into something ancient and dangerous and completely unafraid. "Stand up," he said. His voice was quiet, barely above a murmur, but it carried a weight that made it impossible to disobey. It was not an order. It was reassurance. He reached down and lifted me gently by the wrists, his grip firm but careful, like he was afraid I might break. When I was on my feet again, he did not let go right away. He kept his hands on my wrists, steadying me, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I had almost forgotten existed.
Safety.
No one is touching you, he said, and his eyes never left mine. Not tonight. Not ever again. Behind me, I heard Derek's chair scrape against the floor. The stranger's hands released my wrists slowly, but he did not step back. He positioned himself between me and Derek with a subtle shift that seemed almost casual, but I recognized it for what it was. Protection. The kind that did not need to announce itself. Derek's footsteps approached. I could hear the deliberate heaviness of them, the way he used to walk through our apartment when he wanted me to know he was coming. When he wanted me to have time to be afraid. The hell is this? Derek's voice cut through the silence. Rachel, what are you doing? I could not speak. My throat had closed up completely. The stranger turned to face Derek, and I watched something happen that I had never seen before. Derek stopped walking. Just stopped, mid-step, like he had hit an invisible wall. The stranger had not said anything, had not made any threatening gesture, but something in the way he stood there made Derek hesitate. Your business here is finished, the stranger said. His voice was still quiet, still controlled, but now there was an edge to it that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. Derek laughed, but it sounded forced. Who the hell are you? Her boyfriend? This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, I managed to whisper. I was talking to the lady, Derek said, trying to look around the stranger to get to me. Rachel, stop being dramatic. I just want to see my son. That is all. 5 minutes. You can even stay in the room. The lie was so smooth it almost sounded reasonable. That was Derek's special talent. He could make abuse sound like love, control sound like concern, threats sound like promises. He had convinced our marriage counselor that I was the unstable one. He had convinced my mother that I was overreacting. He had almost convinced me that everything was my fault. Almost. She said no, the stranger replied. Now you're going to walk out of this restaurant, get in whatever vehicle you came in, and you are not going to come back. Derek's face flushed red. That was the warning sign. That was when things always turned violent. Listen, buddy, I do not know who you think you are, but this is a family matter. You need to mind your own business before you get hurt. The stranger smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf might give before it struck. I am making it my business, he said simply. Then something happened that I did not expect. 3 other men who had been sitting at various tables throughout the restaurant stood up simultaneously. They did not make a show of it, did not crack their knuckles or roll their shoulders or do any of the dramatic things you see in movies. They just stood, and suddenly the entire energy in the room shifted. These men were with the stranger. They had been here the whole time, quietly eating, quietly watching, and I had not even noticed them.
Derek noticed them now.
His bravado faltered. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the way his eyes darted between the 4 men who were now casually creating a barrier between him and the rest of the restaurant. Between him and me. This is not over, Rachel, Derek said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. I got rights. I will get a lawyer. I will see my son. Not tonight, you will not, the stranger said. There was finality in his tone that left no room for argument. For a long moment, Derek just stood there, and I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if he could win this fight. But even Derek, drunk and stupid as he could be, was not suicidal. 4 against 1, in a public place, with witnesses. He backed down. But the look he gave me before he left promised that this was far from finished. It was the same look he had given me the night he put me in the hospital, right before the ambulance arrived. A look that said, "You will pay for this later." The door swung shut behind him, and I realized I had been holding my breath. My legs gave out. The stranger caught me before I hit the floor, his arms surprisingly gentle for someone who had just faced down my ex-husband like it was nothing. He guided me to a stool at the counter and made me sit, then signaled to Lisa, who was standing frozen by table 9 with her mouth hanging open. "Water," he said. "And whatever she needs to collect herself." Lisa nodded and practically ran to the kitchen. I sat there shaking, my whole body trembling so hard my teeth were chattering. The adrenaline was wearing off, and in its place was a wave of terror so intense I thought I might vomit. "My son," I gasped.
Ethan.
"He is in the back office." What if Derek goes around to the back entrance? What if he tries to take him? "Marco," the stranger said, not even looking away from me. One of the men who had stood up earlier nodded and headed toward the back of the restaurant. "He will make sure your son is safe. No one is getting past him." "Who are you?" The question came out before I could stop it. The stranger studied me for a moment, and I got the sense he was deciding how much to tell me. "Someone who does not like bullies," he said finally. "My name is Vincent. Vincent Moretti." The name meant nothing to me. I worked double shifts at a diner and spent my free time helping my son with homework and trying to forget the 5 years I had wasted on a man who saw me as property. I did not exactly run in circles where names like Vincent Moretti would mean anything. But I saw something flicker in Lisa's eyes when she returned with the water. Recognition.
And fear.
"Thank you," I whispered, taking the glass with shaking hands. "I am sorry. I did not mean to involve you. I panicked." He said he was going to take Ethan, and I could not think of anything else to do. "You did the right thing," Vincent said. He pulled out the stool next to mine and sat down, angling his body so he could watch both me and the front door. "How long has he been bothering you?" "He just got out." I thought he had another year left on his sentence, but he said the restraining order was dropped, and I do not know if that is true or if he is lying or what is happening. Vincent pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "What is his full name?" "Derek Dawson." "Why?" "I am going to find out if he is telling the truth about the restraining order."
He paused.
"And I am going to make sure he does not come back here." There was something in the way he said it that made me believe him. Not because he was making promises or trying to reassure me with empty words, but because he spoke with the certainty of someone who is used to making things happen. Lisa brought me a glass of whiskey, without being asked. "On the house," she muttered. "You look like you need it more than water." I did not usually drink. Derek had done enough drinking for both of us during our marriage. But tonight, I took the glass and downed half of it in one burning gulp. "Tell me about your son," Vincent said. It was a strange question, completely out of place given everything that had just happened, but I latched onto it like a lifeline. Talking about Ethan always made things better. "He is 6, I said, my voice still shaky, but growing stronger. "First grade. He loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up, even though he cannot pronounce it right yet. He calls it paleology. He is smart. So smart. Top of his class in reading. He sounds like a good kid. He is the best kid." My eyes filled with tears. Derek has not seen him in 3 years. Ethan barely remembers him, and what he does remember gives him nightmares. The idea of him taking Ethan, of my baby being alone with that man. I could not finish the sentence. Vincent's jaw tightened. "That is not going to happen. You do not know Derek. He does not give up. He will find another way. He always finds another way. Then I will stop him another way." Vincent looked at me directly. "Do you trust me?" It was an absurd question. I did not know this man. I had literally just met him 20 minutes ago. For all I knew, he could be just as dangerous as Derek, just in a different way. But when I looked into his eyes, I did not see Derek's cruelty. I did not see the pleasure Derek took in making me afraid. I saw something else. Something that looked almost like honor, if that was even possible anymore. "I do not have a choice," I said honestly.
"So yes."
"I trust you. At least for tonight." He nodded like that was a reasonable answer. I am going to have one of my men take you and your son home. He will stay outside your building tonight to make sure Derek does not show up. Tomorrow we will figure out next steps. I cannot pay you, I blurted out. I barely make enough to cover rent and childcare. Whatever this costs, I do not have it. Vincent's expression softened slightly. I am not asking you to pay me, Rachel. Then why are you helping me? He was quiet for a moment, and I got the sense he was asking himself the same question. Because you asked, he said finally. And because no child should grow up afraid of their father. There was something in the way he said it that made me think he knew what that was like. That maybe Vincent Moretti had not had the easiest childhood either. Tony emerged from the kitchen, his eyes wide. Rachel, what the hell just happened? Lisa said Derek was here? He is gone now, I said quickly. Mr. Moretti helped me. Tony looked at Vincent with an expression that was hard to read. Not quite fear, but definitely wariness. Mr. Moretti, I did not realize. If I had known you were dining here, I would have. The meal is fine, Vincent interrupted. Rachel needs to leave early tonight. I assume that will not be a problem. It was phrased like a question, but it was not really a question. Of course not, Tony said immediately. Rachel, take tomorrow off too.
Paid.
You need time to sort this out. I stared at him. Tony never gave paid time off. Ever. Last year, when I had the flu, he had suggested I come in anyway and just avoid breathing on the customers. That is very generous, Vincent said, and there was approval in his voice. I am sure Rachel appreciates having such an understanding employer. Tony nodded vigorously and retreated back to the kitchen. The man Vincent had sent to check on Ethan returned, my son's small hand clasped in his large one. Ethan looked confused but not scared, probably because Marco had that kind face that made kids trust him instinctively.
Nana.
Ethan said, running over to me. Marco said we're going home early. Is everything okay? I pulled him into my arms, breathing in the smell of his shampoo and the grape juice he had spilled on his shirt at lunch. Everything is fine, baby. We're just leaving a little early tonight. Ethan looked up at Vincent with curious eyes. Who are you? I am Vincent, he said, and his entire demeanor changed. The hardness melted away, replaced by something almost gentle. I am a friend of your mama's. We just met, Ethan said matter-of-factly, because 6-year-olds have no filter. So you are not really friends yet. You are acquaintances. Vincent's lips twitched into an almost smile. You are right. Your mama and I are acquaintances. Is that better? Ethan considered this seriously, then nodded.
Yes.
That is more accurate. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Leave it to Ethan to correct a dangerous stranger on proper terminology. Marco drove us home in a car that probably cost more than I made in 3 years. Ethan chattered the whole way about his homework and the T-Rex facts he had learned at school, completely oblivious to the fact that our lives had just turned upside down again. Vincent followed in his own car, and when we arrived at my building, a rundown apartment complex in a neighborhood that got worse every year, I felt a flash of embarrassment. This man clearly came for money. Real money. The kind that paid for tailored shirts and luxury cars, and men who stood up when you needed backup.
What must he think of my life?
But Vincent did not comment on the peeling paint or the broken security door or the smell of garbage that always seemed to linger in the hallway. He just walked us to my 3rd-floor apartment, waited while I unlocked the 3 separate locks I had installed after Derek went to prison, and did a quick sweep of the rooms before nodding. Marco will be outside, he said. If anything happens, anything at all, you call this number. He handed me a card with nothing on it except a phone number. Anytime, day or night. Thank you, I said, and the words felt completely inadequate for what he had done. I do not understand why you are doing this, but thank you. Vincent looked at me for a long moment. Get some rest, he said finally. We will talk tomorrow. After he left, I locked all 3 locks and checked every window twice. Then I made Ethan dinner, helped him brush his teeth, and read him 2 chapters of his dinosaur book before he finally fell asleep. Only then did I allow myself to fall apart. I sat on my bathroom floor and cried silently into a towel, careful not to wake Ethan. I cried for the girl I used to be before Derek. I cried for the 3 years I had wasted being afraid. I cried because tonight had been so close to disaster, and I cried because a stranger with dark eyes and a dangerous smile had saved me without asking for anything in return. But most of all, I cried because I knew this was not over. Derek would come back. He always came back. And next time, Vincent Moretti might not be there to stop him. I did not sleep that night. Every creak of the building, every voice in the hallway, every car door slamming outside sent my heart racing. I kept getting up to check on Ethan, to make sure he was still breathing, still safe, still mine. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and made coffee. I sat at my tiny kitchen table, the one I had bought at a thrift store for $15, and stared at the business card Vincent had given me. Just a phone number. Nothing else. No company name, no address, no indication of who he really was. But Lisa had recognized his name, and Tony had practically bowed when he realized who was sitting at his counter. That meant something. Something I probably should have been more concerned about if I had any brain space left for new worries. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Restraining order is still active.
Derek liegt.
I have taken care of the situation. He will not bother you at work again. It had to be Vincent. No one else would be texting me at 3 in the morning about Derek. I typed back quickly. How did you get my number? Tony gave it to me. I hope that is acceptable.
I should have been angry about that.
Tony had no right to give out my personal information. But instead, I felt something else. Relief. Because if Vincent had my number, that meant I could reach him if Derek came back. That meant I was not completely alone anymore. It is fine. Thank you for checking on the restraining order. Get some rest, Rachel. I wanted to tell him that rest was impossible, that I could not close my eyes without seeing Derek's face, without remembering the way he used to hold me down when I tried to fight back. But Vincent Moretti was not my therapist or my friend. He was a stranger who had helped me once, out of kindness or obligation or whatever motivated men like him. I could not burden him with the full weight of my fear. So I just typed, "Good night," and set the phone down. But I kept the business card in my pocket. The next morning, Ethan was full of questions about why we left work early, and who the nice man with the fancy car was, and why Marco had such big muscles. I deflected as best I could, making up a story about how Vincent was a friend of Tony's who had offered us a ride because our usual bus was running late. Ethan accepted this with the easy trust of a 6-year-old who still believed adults told the truth. I wished I could still believe that. Tony had given me the day off, but I could not afford to miss 2 shifts in a row, so I dropped Ethan at school and headed to the diner for the lunch rush. My hands were still shaking when I tied my apron on, and every time the door opened, my entire body tensed. But Derek did not come. The lunch rush was busy enough to keep my mind occupied, and Lisa kept shooting me concerned looks from across the floor. During a brief lull around 2, she cornered me by the coffee station. "You need to be careful," she said quietly. "Vincent Moretti is not someone you want to owe favors to." "I do not owe him anything," I said, defensive. "He helped me. That is all." Lisa's expression was complicated. Part concern, part something else I could not quite read. "Rachel, do you know who he is?"
No.
And honestly, right now I do not care. He kept Derek away from me and Ethan. That is all that matters. He is dangerous. Like, seriously dangerous. My cousin's husband works construction, and he told me stories about what happens to people who cross the Moretti family. They do not just break legs. They make people disappear. A chill ran down my spine, but I pushed it away. Derek is dangerous too. And at least Vincent is dangerous to people who deserve it. You do not know that. You do not know anything about him. She was right, of course. But I also did not have the luxury of being picky about my allies. When you are drowning, you do not ask questions about the person throwing you a life preserver. You just grab on and hope they pull you to shore instead of dragging you under. My shift ended at 6. I picked up Ethan from after-school care, and we took the bus home like we did every day. Normal routine. Normal life. Except nothing felt normal anymore. I kept looking over my shoulder, kept scanning faces in the crowd, kept waiting for Derek to appear. When we got to our building, Marco was leaning against a black SUV parked across the street. He nodded at me, a small acknowledgement that he was still there, still watching. The knot in my chest loosened slightly. We made it through dinner and homework and bedtime without incident. I was starting to think maybe, just maybe, Derek had gotten the message and would leave us alone. I should have known better. Around 9, there was a knock on my door. Not pounding, not aggressive, just 3 polite knocks. I looked through the peephole and saw Vincent standing in the hallway, looking as composed as he had the night before. I unlocked all 3 locks and opened the door. "Is everything okay?" I asked immediately. "Did something happen?" "Everything is fine. May I come in?" I hesitated for just a second, very aware that I was wearing old sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, that my apartment was the size of his car, that there was a basket of unfolded laundry on my couch and dishes in my sink. But Vincent had already seen me on my knees begging for help. Dignity was a ship that had sailed. I stepped aside and let him in. He moved through my apartment like he was cataloging exits and sightlines, professional and efficient. When he seemed satisfied that we were alone, he turned to face me. "I need to talk to you about Derek," he said. "And about your safety going forward." My stomach dropped. "He contacted you?"
No.
But I had someone look into his release. He was let out early due to prison overcrowding, and the restraining order is still active, which means he violated it by coming to the restaurant. I could have him arrested for that. But that would only keep him away for a few days, maybe a week. Then he would be out again, and he would be even angrier. I sat down heavily on my couch, pushing the laundry basket aside. So what do I do? I cannot live like this. I cannot spend every day waiting for him to show up, wondering if today is the day he takes Ethan or hurts me or worse. Vincent was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. There are ways to make sure Derek leaves you alone permanently. Legal ways and other ways. Something in his tone made my blood run cold. What do you mean, other ways? I mean that men like Derek only understand one kind of language. And if you want him to disappear from your life completely, I can arrange that. The implication hung in the air between us, heavy and terrifying and tempting. He was offering to kill Derek. A stranger I had known for less than 24 hours was casually offering to murder my ex-husband. I should have been horrified. I should have told him to leave, should have called the police, should have done anything except what I actually did, which was considerate. For one long, terrible moment, I imagined a world where Derek simply did not exist anymore, where I never had to see his face or hear his voice or worry about him hurting Ethan, where I could breathe without fear knotting my lungs. It would be so easy. Vincent would handle it. I would not even have to know the details. Derek would just be gone, and Ethan and I could finally be free. But then I thought about Ethan, about the kind of person I wanted him to grow up to be, about the lessons I was supposed to be teaching him. And I knew that no matter how much I hated Derek, no matter how afraid I was, I could not cross that line. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I cannot. That is not who I am." Vincent nodded like he had expected that answer. "Then we do this the legal way. I have a lawyer who specializes in custody cases. She is very good. She can help you get full custody with supervised visitation only, and she can make sure the restraining order is enforced properly." "I cannot afford a lawyer like that. I can barely afford my rent." "You're not paying for it." "I am." I stood up abruptly.
No.
"Absolutely not. I cannot let you do that. I do not even know why you are helping me in the first place." What do you want from me? The question came out more hostile than I intended, but I was tired and scared and confused about why a man like Vincent Moretti would go so far out of his way for a waitress he did not know. Vincent's expression did not change. I do not want anything from you, Rachel. Everyone wants something. That is how the world works.
So, what is it?
You want me to work for you? You want information about someone? You want me to do something illegal?
No.
Then why? Why are you doing this? He was quiet for so long I thought he was not going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. When I was 8 years old, I watched my father beat my mother unconscious because she burned his dinner. I hid in a closet and did nothing because I was too small and too scared to stop him. She died 3 days later from a brain bleed. The air left my lungs. I spent the rest of my childhood promising myself that if I ever had the power to stop men like my father, I would. Now I have that power. So when I see a woman on her knees begging for help because some piece of garbage is threatening her and her son, I do not need a reason beyond that. I just act. Tears were streaming down my face before I realized I was crying. I am sorry. I am so sorry that happened to you. I do not want your pity, Rachel. I want you to let me help you.
No strines. No faver saúde.
Just help. I wanted to believe him. God. I wanted to believe that someone would help me without expecting anything in return. But life had taught me that nothing was free, that kindness always came with a price tag attached. Still, what choice did I have? Okay, I said finally. Okay, I will meet with your lawyer. Vincent pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. Her name is Catherine Blake. She will call you tomorrow to set up a meeting. In the meantime, Marco will continue watching your building at night, and I will have someone follow you and Ethan during the day. You will not see them, but they will be there. That seems like a lot of resources for someone you do not know. I have the resources to spare. He moved toward the door, then paused. Lock the door behind me. All 3 locks. I always do. He nodded and left, and I locked the door like he said. Then I stood there in my tiny apartment, trying to process everything that had just happened. Vincent Moretti had just told me about his mother's murder, had offered to kill my ex-husband, had promised to pay for a lawyer I could never afford, had station guards to protect me and my son. And he claimed he wanted nothing in return. Either he was telling the truth, which seemed impossible, or he was playing a long game I did not understand yet. Either way, I was in deeper than I had ever intended to be.
My phone rang.
Unknown number again. Hello? Rachel Dawson? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes, my name is Catherine Blake. Vincent Moretti asked me to call you regarding a custody matter. Are you available to meet tomorrow afternoon? I sank back onto the couch. This was really happening. Vincent was really doing this. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I am available. Excellent. I will see you at 2. Vincent will send a car for you. She hung up before I could protest that I could take the bus, that I did not need a car, that this was all too much. But maybe too much was exactly what I needed. Maybe after 3 years of not enough, of barely surviving, of fighting alone, too much was the only thing that could actually change my situation. I just hoped I was not making a deal with the devil to get it. Catherine Blake's office was nothing like I expected. I had pictured something cold and corporate, all glass and steel and uncomfortable modern furniture. Instead, her space was warm, filled with plants and soft lighting and chairs that actually looked like you could sit in them without your back hurting. She was in her late 40s, with silver streaks in her dark hair and the kind of confidence that came from winning battles other people thought were unwinnable. When she shook my hand, her grip was firm. "Tell me everything," she said, settling into the chair across from me. "Start from the beginning. When did you meet Derek?" So I told her. All of it. Things I had never told anyone because I was too ashamed, too afraid they would ask why I stayed, why I did not leave sooner, why I married him in the first place. I told her about meeting Derek when I was 19, fresh out of high school, working at a grocery store and dreaming of maybe going to community college someday. How charming he had been at first, how attentive, how he made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I told her about the first time he hit me, 6 months into our relationship, and how he cried afterward and swore it would never happen again. How I believed him, because I wanted to believe him, because leaving meant admitting I had made a mistake, and I was not ready to admit that yet. I told her about the pregnancy, about how Derek seemed happy at first but then started accusing me of trapping him, of ruining his life. About how the violence got worse after Ethan was born, how Derek resented sharing my attention, how he would shake Ethan when he cried, and I learned to get to the baby first, always first, no matter what Derek was doing to me. I told her about the night I finally left, when Ethan was 3 and Derek had thrown a glass that shattered inches from the baby's head. How I had grabbed Ethan and run to a women's shelter with nothing but the clothes on our backs and $27 in my pocket. Catherine listened to all of it without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, her expression neutral, but her eyes sharp. When I finished, she set down her pen. "You did everything right," she said firmly. "I want you to hear that and believe it. You protected your son. You left when you could. You built a new life. Nothing that happened to you was your fault." The words broke something open in my chest, and I had to press my hand to my mouth to keep from sobbing. "Now here is what we're going to do," Catherine continued. "We're going to file for full custody with supervised visitation only. We are going to document every single time Derek has violated the restraining order. We're going to gather medical records from your hospital visits, testimony from the shelter, school records showing Ethan's nightmares and anxiety. We are going to build a case so airtight that no judge in this state will give Derek unsupervised access to your son. What if it is not enough? What if the judge thinks fathers deserve second chances, or that I am exaggerating, or—" "Rachel." Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. "I have been doing this for 23 years. I have seen every trick, every manipulation, every lie that abusive men try to use in court. And I have won more cases than I have lost.
Trust me.
We're going to win this one too." I wanted to believe her. But trust was a muscle I had not exercised in so long I had forgotten how it worked. "Vincent is paying for all of this," I said quietly. "I do not understand why." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "Vincent Moretti is a complicated man. But in all the years I have known him, I have never seen him help someone without genuine reason. If he says he wants to help you, then he means it. You have known him a long time? Long enough to know that whatever you have heard about him, whatever rumors or stories, the truth is more complicated than people think." That was not exactly reassuring, but I let it go. I had bigger problems than figuring out Vincent's motivations. The car that had brought me to Catherine's office, a sleek black sedan driven by a quiet man who introduced himself only as James, took me back to my apartment. Marco was there when I arrived, occupying his usual post across the street. I waved at him. He nodded back. This was my life now, apparently. Armed guards and expensive lawyers, and a benefactor whose name made people nervous. 3 days passed. 3 days of relative peace where Derek did not show up at the diner, did not call, did not send threatening messages. I started to think maybe he had finally gotten the message. Maybe Vincent's warning had been enough. I should have known better. On the 4th day, I got a call from Ethan's school. The principal's voice was tight with concern. "Miss Dawson, I need you to come to the school immediately. There has been an incident." My heart stopped. "Is Ethan okay? What happened?" "Ethan is fine, but his father showed up during recess and tried to take him off school grounds. Our security stopped him, and we have called the police, but I need you here now." I was out the door before she finished the sentence. James must have been watching my building because the car appeared within 30 seconds of me hitting the sidewalk.
I did not even have to ask.
I just got in and said, "Ethan's school."
Now.
We made it there in 8 minutes. There were 2 police cars in the parking lot when we arrived, and I ran inside so fast I almost fell. Ethan was in the principal's office, sitting on a chair that was too big for him, his dinosaur backpack clutched in his lap. When he saw me, his face crumpled, and he ran into my arms. "Mama," he sobbed. "That man said he was my dad." I told him I do not have a dad, but he grabbed my arm and tried to make me go with him. Mrs. Peterson stopped him. I held my son so tight I was probably hurting him, but I could not let go, could not breathe, could not think past the pure terror of how close I had come to losing him. "You are safe," I whispered into his hair. "You are safe. I am here. You are safe." A police officer approached, her expression sympathetic. "Ms. Dawson, I am Officer Bradley. We need to get a statement from you about the restraining order." So I gave my statement while holding Ethan in my lap, while he cried quietly into my shoulder. I told them about the restraining order, about Derek showing up at the diner, about everything. They took my information and promised to arrest Derek for violating the order, but we all knew how that would go. He would be in jail for a few days, maybe a week, and then he would be out again. The cycle would continue, unless I did something to stop it. My phone buzzed. "Vincent. I heard what happened. Where are you?" "Still at the school." "Stay there. I am coming." He showed up 15 minutes later, walking into the principal's office like he owned it. The principal, a stern woman named Mrs. Harrison, who I had always found slightly intimidating, actually stood up straighter when she saw him. "Mr. Moretti," she said, her voice suddenly formal. "I was not aware you were connected to the Dawson family." "I am helping Ms. Dawson with a security matter," Vincent said smoothly. "Has the individual who attempted to take the child been apprehended?" "The police are looking for him now. He fled when security intervened." Vincent's jaw tightened. He looked at me, and I saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. "This is unacceptable. He came after your son." "I know," I said, my voice shaking. "I know. But what am I supposed to do? The police are useless. The restraining order is useless. He is going to keep coming back until he takes Ethan or kills me, or both." "No, he is not." Vincent's voice was flat, final. "This ends now."
How?
"You said we were doing this the legal way, but the legal way is not working. He just tried to kidnap my son from school." "From school, Vincent, where I thought he was safe." Vincent looked at Ethan, who had stopped crying and was now watching our conversation with wide, scared eyes. "Can I speak to you privately?" I nodded. Mrs. Harrison offered to watch Ethan for a moment, and Vincent and I stepped into the hallway. "I can make him disappear," Vincent said quietly. "Say the word, and Derek Dawson will never bother you or your son again. You will not have to know how. You will not have to be involved. You will just wake up one morning, and he will be gone." The offer hung between us again, even more tempting than the first time. Because this time, Derek had crossed a line. He had gone after my baby. He had tried to take the only good thing I had left in this world. "If I say yes," I whispered, "what does that make me?" "It makes you a mother protecting her child. Nothing more, nothing less." "And what does it make you?" Vincent's expression was unreadable. "It makes me what I already am." I thought about Ethan's face when he ran into my arms, the terror in his eyes, the way he had been shaking. I thought about all the nights he woke up screaming from nightmares about Derek. I thought about the future, about every birthday party and school event and milestone moment that would be overshadowed by the fear of Derek showing up. I thought about the kind of person I wanted to be and the kind of person I needed to be to keep my son safe. Those were not always the same person. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to think about this." Vincent nodded. "You have until tomorrow. After that, I am taking action whether you agree or not. I will not stand by and watch that man terrorize you and your child any longer. You cannot just decide that. This is my life, my choice. And I am making it easier for you by removing the choice. Tomorrow, Derek Dawson will no longer be a threat. You can accept that and move forward, or you can feel guilty about it. Either way, it is happening. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the hallway of my son's school, trying to figure out if I had just been saved or damned. That night, I could not sleep again. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Ethan's soft breathing from his room, thinking about impossible choices and moral lines and whether there was really any difference between letting something happen and making it happen. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway because nothing good happens at midnight, and somehow I needed to know what fresh nightmare was coming for me now. Rachel. A woman's voice, slurred with alcohol or drugs or both. Rachel Dawson?
Who is this?
This is Melissa, Derek's girlfriend. Or ex-girlfriend, I guess, since he is so fucking obsessed with you. My blood ran cold. What do you want? I want to warn you. Derek is not right in the head. He has been talking about you nonstop since he got out. About how you ruined his life, how you took his son, how you owe him. He has a plan, Rachel. I do not know what it is, but he has guns and he has been watching your apartment, and I think he's going to do something really bad really soon. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a daughter. She is 4. And if some crazy ex was planning to hurt her mama, I would want someone to warn her too. Derek is dangerous, Rachel. More dangerous than you remember. Prison made him worse. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, my whole body shaking, and I knew what I had to do. I pulled up Vincent's number and typed out 3 words. Do it. Please. His response came immediately. Consider it done. I deleted the messages. Then I got up, checked all the locks, looked in on Ethan one more time, and went back to bed. I did not sleep that night either. But for the first time in 3 years, it was not because I was afraid. It was because I was trying to figure out if I could live with what I had just done. The next morning felt surreal. I went through all the motions of normal life, making Ethan breakfast, packing his lunch, walking him to the bus stop. But nothing felt real. Everything had this strange, dreamlike quality, like I was watching myself from outside my body. I had just ordered a hit on my ex-husband. The thought kept circling my mind like a vulture. I had crossed a line I never thought I would cross. I had become the kind of person who solved problems with violence. Just like Derek.
No.
Not like Derek. Derek hurt people who were weaker than him, people who could not fight back. This was different. This was protection. This was survival. I kept telling myself that, but it did not make the weight in my chest any lighter. James drove me to work, and Marco was already stationed outside the diner when I arrived. My new normal. Armed guards and moral compromise, and a debt I could not quantify to a man I barely knew. The morning shift passed in a blur. I smiled at customers, took orders, refilled coffee cups, and the whole time my mind was somewhere else. Wondering where Derek was. Wondering if it had already happened. Wondering if I would feel different when he was gone, if some part of me would know the exact moment he stopped existing. Around 11, Catherine Blake called. Rachel, we need to talk. Can you come to my office after your shift? Something in her tone made my stomach drop. What happened? Is it about the custody case? Just come to the office. We will talk then. She hung up before I could ask more questions. The rest of my shift dragged. Every minute felt like an hour. When 6 finally rolled around, I practically ran out the door. Catherine's expression when I arrived told me everything I needed to know. This was bad news. Sit down, she said gently.
Iset.
Derek filed an emergency custody petition this morning. He is claiming that you are mentally unstable, that you have been keeping Ethan from him illegally, and that you are involved with dangerous criminals who pose a threat to the child. The floor dropped out from under me.
What?
That is insane. He is the one who tried to kidnap Ethan from school. He is the one violating the restraining order. I know. And we have documentation of all of that. But Rachel, there is more. Derek has a lawyer now. A good one. Someone from a firm that specializes in father's rights cases. And somehow, he has character witnesses lined up. People who are going to testify that he is a changed man, that he completed anger management in prison, that he is stable and employed and ready to be a father. That is all lies. He just got out. He does not have a job. He tried to kidnap my son 4 days ago. I know. But he is playing this smart. He filed in a different county, in front of a judge who has a history of being sympathetic to fathers. And the emergency hearing is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. How is this happening? How does he suddenly have money for a good lawyer and character witnesses and a whole legal strategy? Catherine's expression darkened. That is what concerns me. Someone is backing him, Rachel. Someone with resources. This did not come together overnight. My mind was racing. Who would help Derek? He did not have family with money. He did not have friends with connections. Unless someone wanted to get to Vincent through me. I need to call Vincent, I said, standing up. Rachel, wait. There is something else you need to know. Catherine's voice stopped me. The petition includes photos. Of you with Vincent. Of his men outside your apartment. Of James driving you places. Derek is arguing that you are romantically involved with a known criminal and that this relationship puts Ethan in danger. The room spun. I am not romantically involved with Vincent. He is just helping me. I know that. You know that. But how does it look to a judge who does not know the context? A single mother, struggling to make ends meet, suddenly has expensive lawyers and bodyguards and rides in luxury cars. Derek is spinning a narrative that you traded one abusive relationship for another, except this time it is with someone even more dangerous. That is not what happened. But can you prove it? Can you explain Vincent's involvement without making it sound like there is something inappropriate going on? I sank back into the chair. This was a trap. Derek, or whoever was helping him, had backed me into a corner. If I admitted that Vincent was helping me, I looked like I was involved with a criminal. If I denied Vincent's help, I had no explanation for the lawyers and security and resources that had suddenly appeared in my life. Either way, I looked bad. What do? I whispered. We fight. We present our evidence. We show the judge the hospital records, the police reports, the school incident. We prove that Derek is the dangerous one, not Vincent. And if that is not enough? Catherine's silence was answer enough. I left her office in a daze. James was waiting outside, and when I got in the car, he took one look at my face and asked, "Where to?" "I need to see Vincent." He nodded and pulled into traffic. Vincent's office was in a part of the city I rarely visited, where the buildings were taller and cleaner, and the people walking the streets wore suits that cost more than my monthly rent. James led me through a lobby with marble floors and a security desk that looked like it belonged in a government building. We took an elevator to the 15th floor. The doors opened directly into a reception area that was all dark wood and expensive art. A woman at the desk smiled politely and said, "Ms. Dawson, Mr. Moretti is expecting you." How did everyone always know I was coming? Vincent's office was at the end of a long hallway. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Vincent himself was standing by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. When he saw me, he ended the call immediately. "Rachel, what happened?" I told him everything. About Derek's custody petition, about the lawyer, about the photos and the narrative they were building. About how helping me had somehow made everything worse. Vincent's expression grew darker with every word. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. "This is my fault," he said finally. "I should have anticipated this. Should have been more careful about being seen with you. How could you have known Derek would use it against me? Because it is what I would have done." Vincent turned away from the window, and for the first time since I met him, he looked almost angry. Derek is not smart enough to orchestrate this alone. Someone is helping him. Someone who knows who I am and sees you as a weakness they can exploit. A weakness? I do not understand. Vincent was quiet for a moment, and I got the sense he was deciding how much to tell me. I have enemies, Rachel. People who would love nothing more than to hurt me, to undermine my authority, to prove I am not as untouchable as everyone thinks. Going after you, using Derek to do it, that is exactly the kind of move one of my competitors would make. The weight of what he was saying hit me like a physical blow. So this is not even about me and Ethan. We are just collateral damage in some war between you and whoever is helping Derek. I am going to fix this.
How?
You cannot make this go away with money or lawyers or whatever else you usually use. There is a hearing tomorrow. A judge is going to decide if Derek gets custody of my son. And every piece of help you have given me is being used as evidence that I am unfit. Then I will remove myself from the equation. I will disappear from your life. No more guards, no more cars, no more visible connection between us. Catherine will stay on your case pro bono, say she took it out of sympathy. The connection to me will be erased. And Derek, what about the plan to make him disappear? Vincent's jaw tightened. That is off the table now. If something happens to Derek right before the custody hearing, you become the prime suspect. And whoever is backing Derek will make sure the police look at you very carefully. I felt like I was drowning. So what do? I just show up tomorrow and hope the judge believes me over Derek and his expensive lawyer and his fake character witnesses? You show up tomorrow and you tell the truth. And you trust Catherine to do her job. And if that is not enough, what if I lose? What if the judge gives Derek custody? Vincent crossed the room in 3 long strides and took my face in his hands, forcing me to look at him. His eyes were intense, burning with something I could not name. That is not going to happen. I will not let it happen. You just said you cannot help me anymore. That your involvement makes things worse. I said I will remove myself from the equation publicly. I did not say I would stop protecting you. His thumbs brushed across my cheekbones, gentle despite the intensity in his voice. Do you understand me, Rachel? No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter what that judge decides, Derek is not taking your son. I promise you that. How can you promise that? Because I have never broken a promise in my life, and I am not starting now. We stood there for a long moment, his hands still framing my face, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This close, I could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated, could feel the warmth of his skin against mine. This was wrong. I should not be noticing these things. Should not be feeling this pull toward a man who is dangerous and powerful and absolutely nothing like what I needed in my life right now. But I had been so alone for so long. And Vincent made me feel safe in a way I had forgotten was possible. I should go, I said, but I did not move. Rachel. My name on his lips sounded different than when anyone else said it.
Softer. Like it meant something.
I need you to know that helping you is never about owing favors or building loyalty or any of the things people probably think. It was because when I saw you on your knees, begging for help, it reminded me of my mother, of how no one helped her when she needed it most. And I decided a long time ago that I would never be that person, the one who looks away. Tears were running down my face again. I seemed to cry more in the past week than I had in the previous 3 years combined. Thank you, I whispered, for everything, even if it made things complicated. Complicated I can handle. He released my face and stepped back, putting professional distance between us again. James will take you home. Marco will stay outside your building tonight. And tomorrow, you will go to that hearing and you will fight for your son. Understood? I nodded. But as I left his office and rode the elevator back down to the lobby, I could not shake the feeling that everything was about to get so much worse before it got better. I was right. When James pulled up to my apartment building, there were 3 police cars parked outside. My blood turned to ice. Stay in the car, James said, but I was already out the door, already running toward the building entrance where officers were talking to my landlord. What is going on? I demanded. I live here. What happened? One of the officers turned to me. Are you Rachel Dawson?
Yes.
What is this about? Ma'am, we received a report that you were holding a child against his father's will. We need to see the child to verify his welfare. The world tilted sideways. What?
No.
I have full custody. There is a restraining order against my ex-husband. We still need to verify the child's welfare, ma'am. Is he upstairs? He is at after-school care. I pick him up in an hour. The officer exchanged glances with his partner. We will need you to take us to pick him up, to verify his condition. This is harassment. My ex-husband is the one violating court orders. He tried to kidnap my son from school 3 days ago. Ma'am, we're just following up on a report. If everything is as you say, then there is no problem, but we need to see the child. I wanted to scream. Wanted to call Vincent, call Catherine, call someone who could make this nightmare stop. But I also knew that refusing to cooperate would only make me look guilty.
Fine.
I will take you to get my son. But I want this on record. I want it documented that I cooperated fully and that there is absolutely nothing wrong with how I am caring for my child. That is fine, ma'am. So I rode in a police car to Ethan's after-school program, with James following behind in the sedan. When we arrived, Ethan's teacher looked terrified, probably thinking something terrible had happened. Ethan himself came running out, saw the police car, and burst into tears. Mama, what did I do wrong? I gathered him into my arms. Nothing, baby. You did nothing wrong. The officers just need to see that you are okay. That is all. The police did their welfare check, asking Ethan questions about whether he felt safe at home, whether anyone heard him, whether he had enough food and a place to sleep. Ethan answered honestly, confused about why strangers were asking him these things. Finally, they seemed satisfied. Everything appears to be in order, the lead officer said. But, ma'am, I would recommend you sort out these custody issues through the proper legal channels. These domestic disputes have a way of escalating. They left. James drove us home, and I sat in the back seat holding my trembling son, trying to figure out how my life had turned into this. That night, after I put Ethan to bed, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the police visit? This is just the beginning. Drop the custody fight and accept my visitation rights, or things get much worse. Your friend Moretti cannot protect you from the law. It was from Derek, or from whoever was helping him. I stared at the message for a long time, and something inside me hardened. They wanted a fight?
Fine.
They would get one. I forwarded the text to Catherine, then to Vincent. Vincent's response came within seconds. Stay calm. Stay strong. Tomorrow, we end this. I wanted to believe him. But tonight, alone in my apartment with my scared son sleeping down the hall and enemies I could not even identify circling closer, belief felt like a luxury I could not afford. All I had left was the will to keep fighting. I just hoped it would be enough. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. I had pictured something grand, imposing, the kind of place where justice felt inevitable. Instead, it was just a plain room with fluorescent lights and uncomfortable wooden benches, the kind of space where lives got decided between lunch breaks and afternoon appointments. Catherine sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, her briefcase open, documents organized in neat stacks. She looked confident, prepared. I tried to draw strength from that, but my hands would not stop shaking. Derek sat across the aisle with his lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he belonged in a corporate boardroom, not a family court. Derek had cleaned up for the hearing. New clothes, fresh haircut, no trace of the drunk who had stumbled into the diner threatening to take my son. He looked respectable, reformed, like someone who deserved a second chance.
It made me want to vomit.
Ethan was with a court-appointed supervisor in a waiting room down the hall. They would bring him in if the judge wanted to speak with him directly. I prayed it would not come to that. He had been through enough. Judge Martha Hendricks entered, and we all stood. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. Catherine had warned me that Judge Hendricks had a reputation for being unpredictable. Sometimes she sided with mothers. Sometimes she believed fathers deserved more credit than they got. Today, my entire future depended on which version of Judge Hendricks showed up. "Be seated," she said, settling behind her bench. "This is an emergency custody hearing in the matter of Dawson versus Dawson. Mr. Sullivan, you filed the emergency petition. Please present your case." Derek's lawyer stood smoothly. "Thank you, Your Honor. My client, Derek Dawson, is a father who has been systematically denied access to his son for 3 years. During that time, he has completed his sentence, participated in extensive anger management therapy, secured steady employment, and worked tirelessly to become the father his son deserves." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. "Ms. Dawson has repeatedly violated my client's visitation rights, has poisoned the child against his father, and has recently become involved with a known criminal figure named Vincent Moretti. This relationship has exposed the child to dangerous individuals, weapons, and an environment wholly unsuitable for a 6-year-old boy." Sullivan pulled out a folder and began showing the judge photographs. Me getting into Vincent's car. Marco standing outside my apartment building. James driving Ethan and me to school. In the photos, Marco's gun was visible under his jacket. James had what looked like a shoulder holster. My stomach dropped. Furthermore, Your Honor, Ms. Dawson has demonstrated unstable behavior, including a public breakdown at her place of employment where she allegedly threw herself at Mr. Moretti's feet begging for help. Multiple witnesses can attest to this erratic display. "That is not what happened," I whispered to Catherine. "I know," she whispered back. "Stay calm. We will get our turn." Sullivan continued. "We have character witnesses prepared to testify that Mr. Dawson is fully rehabilitated and ready to provide a stable, loving home for his son. We are requesting immediate temporary custody pending a full hearing, with supervised visitation for Ms. Dawson until her mental state and choice of companions can be properly evaluated." He sat down, looking pleased with himself. Judge Hendricks turned to Catherine. "Ms. Blake, your response?" Catherine stood, and when she spoke, her voice was steel. "Your Honor, Mr. Sullivan has presented a carefully constructed fiction. Let me present the facts. Derek Dawson was incarcerated for aggravated assault and battery against Ms. Dawson, his wife at the time. She has medical records documenting 3 separate emergency room visits during their marriage. The final incident resulted in a fractured orbital bone and a concussion." She pulled out her own folder, and I saw Derek shift uncomfortably. 3 days ago, Mr. Dawson attempted to forcibly remove the child from school grounds in direct violation of an active restraining order. Campus security had to physically restrain him. We have witness statements from the principal, the teacher on recess duty, and the security guard. We also have a recording from the school's security camera, which I would like to submit into evidence. Judge Hendricks nodded, and Catherine handed over a flash drive. As for Ms. Dawson's alleged involvement with Vincent Moretti, the truth is far less salacious than Mr. Sullivan suggests. Mr. Moretti happened to be present when Mr. Dawson confronted Ms. Dawson at her place of employment, violating the restraining order yet again. Mr. Moretti intervened to prevent what could have escalated into violence. Subsequently, he connected Ms. Dawson with legal representation because she could not afford it on her own. There is no romantic relationship. There is simply a woman in crisis receiving help from someone with resources. Help that includes armed bodyguards? Judge Hendricks asked, her tone skeptical. Help that became necessary after Mr. Dawson attempted to kidnap the child from school, Your Honor. Ms. Dawson was terrified, rightfully so, that Mr. Dawson would make another attempt. The security was temporary, a stopgap measure until proper legal protections could be put in place. Judge Hendricks studied the documents in front of her. Mr. Sullivan, you mentioned character witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. We have 3 individuals prepared to testify about Mr. Dawson's rehabilitation. Call your first witness. The next hour was torture. 3 people I had never seen before took the stand and testified about what a changed man Derek was. His cellmate from prison, who claimed Derek had spent his time studying parenting books and talking about how much he missed his son. His boss at a construction company, who said Derek was reliable and hardworking. His sponsor from an anger management program, who praised his commitment to change.
It was all so polished.
So rehearsed. And I could see Judge Hendricks taking notes, her expression thoughtful. When it was Catherine's turn to cross-examine, she tore into them. The cellmate admitted he had only known Derek for 6 months and had no knowledge of his actual parenting abilities. The construction boss revealed he had only hired Derek 2 weeks ago. The anger management sponsor conceded that attending meetings did not guarantee someone had actually changed their behavior. But the damage was done. Derek looked like someone who was trying. Someone who deserved consideration. Then Catherine called me to the stand. My legs barely supported me as I walked to the witness box. I raised my right hand and swore to tell the truth, and then I sat down facing a room full of people who would judge whether I was fit to keep my own son. Catherine's questions were gentle, walking me through my history with Derek, the abuse, the decision to leave, the 3 years of building a new life. I answered as steadily as I could, trying not to let my voice shake when I described the worst moments. Then it was Sullivan's turn. Miss Dawson, is it true that you have no family support system? My mother passed away 2 years ago. I do not have other family nearby. And you work as a waitress, correct?
Earning minimum wage petite.
Yes. Hardly a stable income for raising a child. I manage. Ethan has everything he needs. Does he? Or does he have a mother who works long hours and leaves him in after-school care until late in the evening? A mother who is so desperate for help that she begs strange men in restaurants to save her. Objection, Catherine said sharply. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, Judge Hendricks said. Mr. Sullivan, ask your questions without editorializing. But Sullivan had made his point. He made me sound pathetic, desperate, unstable. Miss Dawson, how long have you known Vincent Moretti? About a week. 1 week. And in that time, he has provided you with legal representation, bodyguards, transportation. That seems remarkably generous for someone you barely know. What exactly is the nature of your relationship with Mr. Moretti? He is someone who helped me when I needed it. That is all. Come now, Ms. Dawson. Mr. Moretti is not known for his charitable work. He is known for running a criminal enterprise. What did you offer him in exchange for this help? My face burned. Nothing. I offered him nothing. He helped me because he saw someone in trouble and he did the right thing. Or perhaps he saw an opportunity. A vulnerable woman, a cute kid, a chance to present himself as a savior while gaining leverage. Is it possible you are being manipulated, Ms. Dawson?
No.
That is not what is happening. But you cannot be sure, can you? Because you have known him for 1 week. You have no idea what his true motivations are. I did not have an answer for that. Because he was right. I did not really know Vincent. I did not understand why he had helped me, or what he got out of it, or whether there was some angle I was too desperate to see. Sullivan sat down, looking satisfied. Judge Hendricks called a 15-minute recess. Catherine and I went into the hallway, and she tried to reassure me that everything was going okay, but I could see the worry in her eyes. He is making me look like an idiot, I said. Like I am too stupid to see that I am being used. You are not an idiot. You are a mother protecting her child with the resources available to you. The judge will see that. But I was not sure she would. When we reconvened, Catherine called the principal from Ethan's school, who testified about the attempted kidnapping. Then she called Officer Bradley, who had responded to the incident. The evidence was damning. Derek had clearly violated the restraining order, clearly attempted to take Ethan by force. But Sullivan had an answer for everything. His client had been confused about the terms of his release. He had not understood that the restraining order was still active. He had simply wanted to see his son and made an error in judgment. He had left when asked and had not actually succeeded in taking the child anywhere. It was all lies, but they were plausible lies. Reasonable doubt dressed up as misunderstanding. Judge Hendricks called Derek to the stand. I watched him walk up there, take the oath, settle into the chair with a humility that was absolutely fake. He was performing, playing the role of the reformed father, and he was doing it well. Mr. Dawson, tell me about your time in prison, Judge Hendricks said. It was the worst and best thing that ever happened to me, Your Honor. His voice was soft, earnest. Worst because I lost my family. Best because it forced me to confront who I had become. I was not a good husband. I was not a good father. I had anger issues and drinking problems, and I took it out on the person I loved most. I wanted to scream. He had never loved me. Love did not leave bruises. Love did not break bones. I spent every day in prison working on myself, Derek continued. Anger management classes, substance abuse counseling, parenting workshops. I read every book I could find about how to be better. And when I got out, all I wanted was a chance to prove to my son that I had changed, that I could be the father he deserved. And yet you violated a restraining order and attempted to remove your son from school, Judge Hendricks said. I know that was wrong. But Your Honor, I had not seen my boy in 3 years. 3 years of his life that I missed because of my own mistakes. When I saw him on that playground, I just wanted to talk to him, to tell him I was sorry, to let him know his dad was back, and things were going to be different. I did not think about the restraining order or the proper procedures. I just thought about my son. Tears rolled down his cheeks.
Actual tears.
He was crying on the stand, and I knew exactly what he was doing. The same thing he always did. Making himself the victim. Making everyone feel sorry for him. And it was working. I could see it in Judge Hendricks' expression, the way she was looking at him with something like sympathy. Mr. Dawson, if I were to grant you custody, how would you support the child? I have a good job in construction. I have a 2-bedroom apartment. My mother lives nearby and has agreed to help with childcare. I have a complete support system ready. And Your Honor, I have spent 3 years dreaming of being a real father to Ethan, of making up for lost time, of showing him that people can change if they work hard enough. Judge Hendricks was writing notes. Then she looked up. I am ready to make my ruling. My heart stopped. This was it.
Right now.
She was going to decide whether I kept my son or lost him to the man who had nearly killed me. This is a difficult case, Judge Hendricks began. Both parents clearly love this child. Ms. Dawson has been the primary caregiver for 3 years and has worked hard to provide for her son despite limited resources. Mr. Dawson has a documented history of domestic violence, but also documented evidence of rehabilitation efforts.
Please. Please. Please.
However, I am troubled by several factors. Ms. Dawson's recent association with known criminals, even if well-intentioned, does expose the child to risk. The presence of armed bodyguards around a 6-year-old is concerning regardless of the circumstances that led to it. Additionally, Ms. Dawson appears to have limited financial stability and no family support system.
No,
this was not happening. Mr. Dawson has shown remorse, has completed programs designed to address his behavioral issues, and appears to have established a stable home environment. While his attempt to see his son at school showed poor judgment, I do not believe it indicates violent intent. Catherine gripped my hand under the table. Therefore, I am granting temporary custody to Mr. Dawson. The world exploded into white noise. I could not hear anything over the roaring in my ears. This could not be real. This could not be happening. pending a full evaluation to be completed within 60 days. Ms. Dawson will have supervised visitation twice weekly. Both parents will undergo psychological evaluation. We will reconvene in 2 months to make a final determination. The gavel came down. I could not breathe, could not move, could not process that a judge had just handed my son to his abuser because I had accepted help from the wrong person. Derek was smiling. Actually smiling. Catherine was saying something, her voice urgent, but I could not hear her over the sound of my heart breaking. "We will appeal," Catherine said. "Rachel, listen to me. This is not over. We will appeal immediately. This is temporary. Do you hear me? Temporary." But temporary did not matter. Because right now, today, I had to tell my 6-year-old son that he was going to live with the man he was terrified of. That the monster from his nightmares was taking him away from the only safety he had ever known.
And it was my fault.
Because I had trusted Vincent. Because I had accepted his help. Because I had been too weak to protect my child on my own. Derek approached with his lawyer, both of them looking triumphant. "I will pick him up tonight," Derek said. 6 o'clock. "Have his things ready." "You will pick him up tomorrow," Catherine interjected. "Ms. Dawson has 24 hours to prepare the child for this transition. That is standard procedure." Derek looked like he wanted to argue, but Sullivan put a hand on his arm. "Tomorrow is acceptable. 6 o'clock, Ms. Dawson. Do not make this difficult." They left, and I finally let myself break. I sobbed into Catherine's shoulder in that empty courtroom, and she held me while I fell apart. While my entire world crumbled. While everything I had fought for slipped away. How did this happen? I gasped between sobs. How did he win? He had help. Professional help. This was coordinated by someone who knew exactly how to manipulate the system. Catherine's voice was tight with anger. "But Rachel, I promise you, we will fix this. The appeals court will see through Derek's performance. We will get Ethan back." "What if we do not? What if he hurts him? What if something happens to Ethan while he is with Derek and I am not there to protect him? Then Derek will never see him again."
But it will not come to that.
"We have 60 days. I will file the appeal tomorrow. We will request an emergency stay. We will fight this with everything we have." But words were not enough. Promises were not enough. My baby was going to be taken from me in 24 hours, and no amount of legal maneuvering would change that. I called Vincent from the courthouse steps. He answered on the first ring.
"Tell me," he said.
"I lost. He got temporary custody. I have to give Ethan to him tomorrow night." Silence. Then, "That is not happening. Vincent, there is nothing we can do." The judge ruled. "If I do not turn Ethan over, I will be in contempt. I will lose him permanently." I said, "It is not happening, Rachel. Get in the car. James is out front. Come to me. Now." The line went dead. I found James waiting by the sedan. He opened the door without a word, and I got in, still numb, still trying to understand how everything had gone so catastrophically wrong. Vincent was waiting in his office. The moment I walked in, he pulled me into his arms, and I broke again. I cried into his chest while he held me, one hand stroking my hair, murmuring things in Italian I did not understand, but that sounded like comfort. When I finally pulled away, his expression was murderous. "Who helped him?" I asked. Catherine said someone with resources backed Derek's case.
"Who would do that?"
"Who wants to hurt me this badly?" Vincent's jaw was tight. "His name is Santoro.
Luca Santoro.
He runs territory north of here, and he has been trying to move into my areas for years. This is him sending a message, proving he can get to the people I protect." So I was right. This was never about Ethan. We are just pawns in some game between you and this Santoro person. You are not a pawn. You are someone who needed help, and I gave it. What Santoro did is on him, not you. But if you had not helped me, if I had just dealt with Derek on my own, none of this would have happened. Ethan would still be mine. And Derek would have taken him eventually anyway, except you would have been alone with no resources and no one to turn to. At least this way you have me. What good does that do? You cannot fix this. The law is the law. I have to give Ethan to Derek tomorrow, or I will be the one who goes to jail. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. There is another option. I looked up at him, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold.
No. Y whispered. No.
You cannot be suggesting. I can have you and Ethan out of the country by tomorrow morning. New identities. New life. Somewhere Derek and Santoro and the entire legal system cannot touch you.
That is kidnapping.
That is illegal. I would be a fugitive. Ethan would be torn away from everything he knows, from his school, his friends, his entire life. His entire life is you, Rachel. As long as he is you, he has everything that matters. And what kind of life would that be? Always running, always looking over our shoulders, always afraid someone will recognize us and send us back? I cannot do that to him. Then what is your alternative? You hand him over to Derek tomorrow and hope the appeals court moves fast enough to get him back before Derek hurts him? Because that is what will happen, Rachel. You know it and I know it. Derek is going to hurt that boy. Maybe not immediately, but eventually. And you will have to live with knowing you could have prevented it.
He was right.
The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. If I gave Ethan to Derek, my son would suffer. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but eventually Derek's anger would resurface, his need for control would manifest, and Ethan would learn what it felt like to be afraid in his own home. Just like I had. I need to think, I said. I need time to figure this out. You have until 6 o'clock tomorrow. After that, the decision is out of your hands. I left Vincent's office more confused and terrified than when I arrived. James drove me to pick up Ethan from school, and when I saw my baby's face light up when he spotted me, I almost broke down again. How was I supposed to tell him? How was I supposed to explain that tomorrow night he was going to go live with a man he barely remembered, a man who existed in his mind only as the source of nightmares? That night, after dinner, I sat him down on the couch. Ethan, baby, I need to talk to you about something important. He looked up at me with those wide, trusting eyes, and I wanted to die. You know how you have a daddy? And how you do not see him very much. Ethan's expression changed. Fear crept into his features. The bad man? My heart shattered. He is your father. And a judge decided that you're going to go stay with him for a little while.
No.
Ethan's voice was small, terrified. No, Mama, I do not want to. I want to stay with you. I know, baby. I know. But sometimes adults have to follow rules even when we do not like them. And the rule is that you have to go stay with your dad for a little bit. How long? I do not know yet. Maybe 2 months. Maybe less if I can fix things. 2 months. Tears were streaming down his face. That is so long. Mama, please. I do not want to go. He scares me. I pulled him into my arms and held him while he cried, while my 6-year-old begged me not to send him away, while he sobbed that he would be good, that he would do all his homework and clean his room and never complain, if only I would let him stay. And I had no comfort to offer him, no promises that everything would be okay, because everything was not going to be okay, unless I did something unthinkable, unless I ran. That night, after Ethan finally cried himself to sleep, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my phone. At Vincent's number. 1 call. That was all it would take. 1 call, and he would make this all go away. We would disappear. Start over. Be free. But we would also be criminals. We would be running for the rest of our lives. And one day, maybe years from now, Ethan would be old enough to understand what I had done. That I had made him a fugitive. That I had stolen his chance at a normal life because I could not protect him any other way. Would he forgive me? Or would he resent me forever for the choice I made tonight? My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Tomorrow at 6. Do not be late. And Rachel? Our son is going to love living with his real family. Maybe after a few weeks with me, he will forget you ever existed. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I picked up my phone and called Vincent. I need your help, I whispered when he answered. Not to run. To fight. Tell me how to get my son back. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he said 6 words that changed everything. Meet me at the warehouse. Come alone. The warehouse was in a part of the city I had never been to before. Industrial. Empty. The kind of place where things happened that nobody talked about afterward. James drove me there just after midnight, the streets dark and silent except for the occasional distant siren. I should have been terrified. A week ago, I would have been. But tonight, fear felt like a luxury I could not afford. My son was going to be handed over to his abuser in 18 hours, and I was willing to do whatever it took to stop that from happening. Even if it meant crossing lines I never thought I would cross. The warehouse door was open. Inside, harsh fluorescent lights illuminated a mostly empty space. Concrete floors, exposed beams, the smell of oil and rust. Vincent stood in the center with Marco and 2 other men I recognized from the restaurant that first night. And someone else, a man I did not know, zip-tied to a metal chair, blood dripping from his nose. I stopped walking. Vincent, what is this? This is Paul Richards. He works for Luca Santoro. He is the one who coordinated Derek's legal strategy, found the lawyer, coached the witnesses, took the photographs of you and me together. The man in the chair looked up at me, and even through the swelling, I could see the fear in his eyes. I do not understand what you want me to do here, I said, my voice shaking. I want you to understand something, Rachel. Vincent walked toward me, his expression serious. The system failed you today. The judge, the lawyers, the rules that are supposed to protect people like you. They all failed because someone with money and connections decided to hurt you to get to me. And tomorrow, unless we do something, they are going to hand your son over to a man who will hurt him. I know that. That is why I called you. But this. I gestured at the man in the chair. What is this supposed to accomplish? Information. Paul here is going to tell us everything. Every detail of Santoro's plan. Every piece of evidence they fabricated. Every witness they paid off. And then you are going to decide what we do with that information. The man in the chair started talking, his words coming out in a rush. Look, I am just an employee, okay? I do what Santoro tells me. He said there was this woman his rival cared about, said to make her life hell. Make her lose custody of her kid. I just did what I was told. I did not hurt anyone directly. You put a child in danger, I said, my voice colder than I expected. You helped an abusive man get custody of his victim's son. You think that is not hurting anyone directly? I am sorry, okay? I am sorry. But I got information. I can help you. I got recordings of Santoro planning the whole thing. I got proof that Derek's witnesses were paid. I got documentation of everything. It is all on a hard drive at my apartment. You can have it. Just let me go. Vincent looked at me. What do you want to do, Rachel? I want the recordings. I want every piece of evidence that proves Derek's case was built on lies. You can have all of that. But after we have it, this man still exists.
He still knows about you.
He still works for Santoro. And Santoro does not give up just because one plan failed. He will try again. Maybe with Derek, maybe with something else. As long as people like Paul are out there working for him, you will never be safe. I understood what he was really asking, what choice he was putting in front of me. This man had helped orchestrate the theft of my child. He had been part of a plan that would have resulted in Ethan being hurt. He was not innocent, but he was also not Derek. He was just someone doing a job, following orders, probably telling himself it was not really his fault. I am not a killer, I said quietly. I cannot give you permission to do this. I am not asking for permission. I am telling you what is going to happen regardless, and giving you the chance to look away if you want to. What if I say no? What if I say you have to let him go? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then I let him go. And I accept the consequences of that choice. I looked at Paul Richards. At his terrified face. At the blood on his shirt. At this man who had hurt me without ever meeting me, who had put my son in danger from behind a desk, who thought that made him less guilty than if he had done it with his own hands. I thought about Ethan's face when I told him he had to go live with Derek. About his sobs. About the fear in his voice. I thought about all the men over the years who had hurt women and children and got away with it because they had money or connections or because they were just following orders. I thought about the kind of person I wanted to be and the kind of person I needed to be to protect my son. Get the evidence, I said finally. Make copies. Give it to Catherine. Let her use it to get an emergency stay and overturn the custody ruling. And after that? Vincent asked. I met his eyes. After that, I do not want to know what happens to him. That is your world, not mine. But Vincent? Make sure Santoro knows that going after me was a mistake. Make sure he understands that I am not a weakness you can exploit. I am someone you protect. Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition that I had just made a choice that would change me forever. Consider done, he said. Marco moved toward Paul to take him away, but I held up my hand.
Wait.
I need to ask him something. I approached the chair, crouching down so I was at eye level with the man who had tried to destroy my life. Did you think about what would happen to Ethan? When you were planning all of this, did you even consider that he was a real child who would be hurt by what you were doing? Paul would not meet my eyes. I try not to think about the details. Makes the job easier. I want you to think about them now. I want you to remember that you almost put a 6-year-old boy in the hands of someone who would hurt him. And I want you to carry that with you, however much time you have left. I stood and walked away toward the warehouse exit. Behind me, I heard movement, heard voices, heard things I chose not to process. James was waiting outside with the car. He opened the door without comment and I got in. Take me home, I said. We drove in silence. When we pulled up to my building, Marco was not at his usual post. I wondered if he was back at the warehouse helping with whatever was happening there. I did not let myself think about it. Inside my apartment, I checked on Ethan. He was asleep, finally, his face still streaked with dried tears. I brushed his hair back from his forehead and whispered promises I hoped I could keep. My phone buzzed. Vincent, we have everything. Catherine will have it within the hour. She is filing for an emergency stay first thing in the morning. The judge will have no choice but to reverse the custody order when she sees the evidence of fraud. And Paul? He will not be a problem anymore. Neither will anyone else Santoro might send. I made sure of that. I did not ask how. Did not want to know the details. Some things were easier to live with if they stayed abstract. Thank you, I typed back. Get some rest. Tomorrow you get your son back. I wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him. I lay down in my bed, but did not sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the woman I used to be. The one who married Derek because she thought love meant giving someone chances. The one who stayed because leaving seemed harder than surviving. The one who believed that if she was just good enough, patient enough, understanding enough, everything would work out. That woman was gone. She had died somewhere between the courthouse and the warehouse, between the moment I lost custody and the moment I chose to look away from violence committed on my behalf. In her place was someone harder. Someone who understood that the world did not reward goodness, it rewarded strength. Someone who would do whatever it took to protect her child, even if that meant carrying guilt she would never fully shake. I was not sure if that made me better or worse than who I used to be. Maybe it just made me a survivor. Around 4 a.m, my phone rang. Catherine. Rachel, I need you to meet me at the courthouse at 8. I have filed an emergency motion to stay the custody order and reverse Judge Hendrix's ruling. We have evidence of fraud, witness tampering, and conspiracy. The appeals judge is going to hear our motion first thing this morning. Will it work? It will work. I have recordings of Santoro discussing the plan. I have bank records showing payments to Derek's witnesses. I have text messages between Paul Richards and Derek coordinating testimony. This case is going to be thrown out so fast it will make your head spin. Relief flooded through me so intensely, I had to sit down. So, Ethan does not have to go with Derek? Not only does Ethan not have to go with Derek, but Derek is going to be arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud and for violating the restraining order. He is looking at serious prison time, Rachel.
Real time.
Not a year or 18 months. We are talking 5 to 10 years minimum. I started crying. Again. I seem to do nothing but cry lately. Thank you, I managed to say. Thank you so much. Thank Vincent. I do not know how he got this evidence so quickly, and I am not going to ask. But it is airtight. Derek and Santoro are done. After I hung up, I finally let myself feel it. Hope. Real hope, not the desperate kind that felt like drowning, but the solid kind that felt like ground beneath my feet. At 7, I woke Ethan and told him there had been a change. That he did not have to go live with Derek after all. That the judge had made a mistake, and we're going to fix it today. He did not understand all the details, but he understood enough. He threw his arms around my neck and held on so tight, I could barely breathe. I knew you would fix it, Mama, he said. I knew you would not let him take me. I wished I had his faith. His certainty that mothers could fix anything, solve any problem, make the world safe again just by trying hard enough. But maybe that was exactly the kind of person I needed to become. Not the woman who had let Derek hurt her for years. Not the woman who had accepted that she deserved the pain. But the woman my son believed I was. The one who fought back. The one who won. The courthouse was different this time. We were not in Judge Hendrix's courtroom, but in a larger one, in front of Judge Martinez, who handled appeals and emergency motions. Catherine had all her evidence organized, ready to present. Derek was not there. Neither was his lawyer. Apparently, when Sullivan had been informed of the evidence Catherine had, he had withdrawn from the case immediately, citing ethical concerns about his client's honesty. Judge Martinez reviewed the materials Catherine presented. The recordings played in the courtroom, Santoro's voice cold and calculating as he discussed the plan to destroy me to hurt Vincent. The bank records showing payments to witnesses. The text messages proving the whole thing had been orchestrated. The judge's face grew darker with each piece of evidence. This is one of the most egregious cases of fraud I have seen in 20 years on the bench, she said finally. Judge Hendrix's ruling is hereby stayed and reversed. Full custody remains with Ms. Dawson. I am also issuing a permanent restraining order against Derek Dawson with a 500-yard minimum distance. He is not to contact Ms. Dawson or the child through any means for any reason. Additionally, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The gavel came down, and this time it sounded like freedom. Catherine and I left the courthouse into bright morning sunshine. Ethan was waiting with James, and when I told him it was over, that he was staying with me forever, he smiled so wide it made my chest hurt. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" he asked. "We can get all the ice cream you want," I said. James drove us to Ethan's favorite ice cream place. We sat outside in the sunshine, eating chocolate and vanilla and strawberry, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt something like peace. My phone buzzed. "Vincent," I heard. "Congratulations. Thank you for everything. I do not know how to repay you for what you have done." "You do not need to repay me. But Rachel, we need to talk. About what happens next. About Santoro, and the fact that he is still out there. About your safety going forward." "I know. But can it wait until tomorrow? Today, I just want to be with my son. I want to pretend we are a normal family, having a normal day. Just for a few hours. There was a pause, then, of course.
Take your time.
When you are ready, call me. We will figure out the next steps together. I set the phone down and watched Ethan chase a butterfly across the grass, his laughter bright and clear in the afternoon air. I had won. For today, at least, I had won. But Vincent was right. Santoro was still out there. And men like him did not forget when someone made them look weak. This was not over. It was just a pause. A breath between rounds. Eventually, I would have to face what came next. The consequences of the choices I had made. The reality of being connected to Vincent Moretti and everything that meant. But not today. Today, I was just a mother watching her son eat ice cream in the sunshine. And that was enough. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of something that almost felt like normal life. Ethan went to school. I went to work. And slowly the fear that had lived in my chest for so long started to ease. Derek was in jail awaiting trial. The restraining order was permanent. Catherine assured me that between the fraud charges and the kidnapping attempt, he would be locked up for years. I should have felt safe. But I knew better now. I had learned that safety was an illusion, something that could be shattered in an instant by men with money and grudges. Vincent called me every few days, checking in, making sure Ethan and I were okay. Marcos still watched our building at night, though less obviously now. James still drove us places when the bus schedule did not work. I had tried to tell Vincent that we did not need the protection anymore, that Derek was locked up and we were fine. He had just looked at me with those dark eyes and said, "Santoro does not forget." I had not understood what he meant until tonight. I was closing up at the diner. The last customer had left around 9, and Lisa had already gone home. Tony was in the back office doing paperwork. It was just me on the floor, wiping down tables, preparing for tomorrow's breakfast shift. The door opened. I looked up with my customer service smile ready, prepared to tell whoever it was that we were closed. The smile died on my lips.
2 men walked in.
Both wearing expensive suits. Both carrying themselves with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. I did not recognize them, but something in the way they moved made my skin crawl. "We're closed," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We are not here to eat," the taller one said. He had silver hair and cold blue eyes. "We are here to deliver a message." I backed toward the kitchen, toward Tony, toward help. The second man moved faster than I expected, blocking my path. "Mr. Santoro would like to speak with you." My blood turned to ice. "I have nothing to say to Santoro." "That is unfortunate, because he has quite a bit to say to you." The silver-haired man pulled out a phone and tapped the screen.
"He is on video call."
"You can talk to him here, or we can take you somewhere more private. Your choice." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to scream for Tony, to do anything except cooperate. But these men had not threatened me yet, had not touched me. If I escalated, who knew what would happen? I took the phone with shaking hands. The face on the screen was younger than I expected. Lucas Santoro looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not running a criminal empire. Clean-shaven, styled dark hair, a smile that probably charmed people who did not know better. "Rachel Dawson," he said, his voice smooth. "We finally meet, even if it is only virtually." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something. Vincent Moretti thinks he can protect you. He thinks that because he stopped one plan, eliminated one employee, made one example, that I will simply give up and move on. But that is not how this works. I do not care about your war with Vincent. I just want to raise my son in peace. Then you should not have involved yourself with Vincent. You should not have let him use his resources to interfere with my perfectly legal operation to help Derek Dawson regain custody of his child." "Legal? You paid off witnesses. You fabricated evidence." Santoro's smile widened. "Can you prove I did any of that?" "The evidence that surfaced, it implicated my employee, not me. Paul Richards acted alone, as far as any prosecutor can prove. I am untouchable, Rachel.
But you?
You are very, very touchable. My grip on the phone tightened. If you're going to threaten me, just do it. Stop playing games. I am not threatening you. I am offering you a choice. Vincent has something I want. Territory, specifically. 3 neighborhoods on the north side that should belong to me. You're going to convince him to give them up. I have no influence over Vincent's business decisions. We are not even friends. He just helped me with a legal problem. Do not insult my intelligence. Vincent Moretti does not help people out of the goodness of his heart. He does not pay for lawyers and provide security and personally involve himself in custody battles for strangers. You matter to him, which means you have leverage. And if I refuse, then I go after what Vincent cares about. And right now, that appears to be you and your son. Derek was just the beginning, Rachel. I can make your life so difficult, so complicated, so dangerous, that you will beg Vincent to give me what I want just to make it stop. The phone went dark. The 2 men took it back. You have 48 hours, the silver-haired man said. Convince Vincent to give Santoro the North Side territory, or things get very unpleasant for you and your boy. They left as quickly as they had come, and I stood there shaking in the middle of the empty diner. Tony emerged from the back. Rachel, you okay? I thought I heard voices. I am fine. I lied. Just some customers who did not realize we were closed. I finished my closing duties on autopilot, my mind racing. Santoro was right about one thing. I did matter to Vincent. I had seen it in the way he looked at me, in the lengths he had gone to help me, in the protectiveness that seemed to go beyond simple kindness. But that did not mean I had the right to ask him to give up part of his business. To surrender territory to a rival just to keep me safe. Except if I did not, what would Santoro do? Go after Ethan again? Find some new legal loophole? Or would he skip the legal route entirely and just take what he wanted by force? James was waiting outside with the car. The moment I got in, he knew something was wrong. What happened? I need to see Vincent.
Now.
He did not ask questions, just drove. 20 minutes later, I was back in Vincent's office. He was on the phone when I burst in, but he took one look at my face and ended the call immediately. Rachel, what is wrong? I told him everything. About Santoro's men, about the video call, about the ultimatum. Vincent's expression grew darker with every word. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said quietly, he made a mistake. What do you mean? He thought threatening you would make me weak. Make me willing to negotiate. He does not understand that it had the opposite effect. Vincent pulled out his phone and made a call.
Marco.
Gather everyone. Full meeting in 1 hour. We are going to war. Vincent, no. You cannot start a war over me. Just give him the territory. It is not worth people dying. He looked at me like I had said something absurd. Rachel, if I give him the territory, it proves that threatening you works. Every rival I have will immediately start looking for ways to get to you, to Ethan, to anyone I care about. It sets a precedent I cannot afford. So, what are you going to do? I am going to remind Lucas Santoro why people do not threaten what is mine. The certainty in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel something else entirely. Protected.
Valued.
Like I mattered enough to fight for. I do not want you to get hurt because of me, I said quietly. Vincent crossed the room and took my face in his hands, just like he had done once before. I am not getting hurt. Santoro is. He crossed a line, and now he pays the price. That is how this world works. Your world, not mine. Are you sure about that? His thumbs brushed across my cheekbones. Because from where I am standing, you stopped living in your safe, normal world the moment you got on your knees and asked me for help. You are in my world now, Rachel. And in my world, we protect our own. I am not yours. Are not you? His eyes searched mine. Then why does the thought of Santoro Threatening you make me want to burn his entire operation to the ground. Why do I check my phone 20 times a day to make sure you are safe? Why do I lie awake at night thinking about you and that boy, and whether I am doing enough to protect you? My breath caught. Vincent. I did not plan this. Did not want to care about anyone. It is dangerous in my line of work, caring. It makes you vulnerable. But you knelt beside me in that diner and looked at me with those terrified eyes, and something in me just broke open. I could not walk away. I cannot walk away. So yes, Rachel, you are mine, and I am going to make damn